This meeting is being recorded.
All right, hello everybody. Welcome to the interview 4.3. I am the facilitator, Haven.
I am supposed to be the jokester, but we skipped that today.
Joey.
I'm the host.
Daniela.
I am the submitter.
And James.
I am James McVicker. I will be the challenger for today's meeting.
Okay, skipping the joke of the day, no team activity, review agenda, and interview guide. Make any changes needed. So we've got the Google Doc up. Everybody has the Google Doc in front of them or printed
Yes.
of them. And we've discussed all of the changes that we've discussed with Dr. Chandley. Some of those changes are highlighted in yellow on the Google Doc. And James, you added those most recently, so I'm going to kind of hold you accountable to making sure that we cover those because they're not on my printed.
So
Okay.
Joey's going to be leading in. So he's going to do the intro and stuff, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I think all I really added was that we make sure to put the time limit and the limitations, and just let him know what we're doing,
Great. Okay. So are we ready to bring in Alan?
Yeah. What am I supposed to say differently for the time limit other than it's 1 hour?
I think just letting him know that it's was planned to be 1 hour.
Okay.
All right. So as we have it laid out, we've got 2 questions each for everybody twice. But feel free to ad lib or interject anytime you want to go off book. That's fine. We'll explain that to Alan as well. And let's bring on Alan.
He actually went to bed. He wasn't interested in it.
Oh my god.
All right, hold on. I'm sending him a text. I don't want to walk over there.
I feel nervous.
Everyone's looking at you, Danielle, to carry this one. They're not messed up. Be more talkative, everyone.
He's probably playing Roller Coaster Tycoon. So
Joey, you're gonna do the introduction and lay out all the topic and time limit and things like that. All right. Pause the recording until he shows up.
I am ready. I did.
can you sit in front of the camera?
Sorry.
All right, so everybody, this is Alan. This is my partner. And then I lost the questions. Okay, so Alan, we're doing this interview as a part of a team project to practice interviewing skills, to learn to engage others, and then to better understand how leadership and teamwork kind of go hand in hand. And I suggested you as our interviewee because of your background. I also thought it might be beneficial since you have a military background as well. So coming from different leadership styles in the military, and then as a COO of an organization in Ohio. Yeah, I think it's appropriate. So does anyone else have anything to add, or would you all like to go around and introduce yourselves real quick?
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
Ari?
Yeah, sure. I'm Ari Ecker. I'm in New Jersey. I work in video production, and I am going back to school after a 16-year hiatus. So I'm excited about that.
Haven?
My name's Haven. I live in Versailles, Kentucky, and right now I work at CVS while I'm getting done with school.
James?
Alan, I'm James. I live in San Jose, California. I'm trying to finish up my degree and get a degree in organizational leadership so I can be a PM rather than have to take advice from bad PMs all day, being a lead tech in the AV industry.
Daniela?
I'm Daniela. I'm also majoring in organizational leadership. I'm here in Phoenix, Arizona, and I currently work in the solar department for my local electric company.
Solar, I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so Alan, this is going to be roughly an hour long. We will do our best to keep it within that, but a lot of that will be on you with your responses. So I guess we can go ahead and just get started. The first question we have listed is, what made you go into the restaurant industry? So what led you to the restaurant realm?
Oh, that's easy. I was going out pretty much every night of the week. And I remember turning to my best friend and saying, why am I spending money when I could be making money?
Yeah.
Here we are.
So on that, could you, I don't know if we actually talk about this. So this is a question I'm surprised that's not on here. Could you actually go into a little detail about your background?
Okay. So I did military for 4 years active, 4 years inactive. Right out of the military, I did a couple years with Walmart as a department manager, and then left Walmart for the restaurant. It was actually a restaurant, nightclub, theater complex, and I started as a lighting technician and disc jockey. From there, I was promoted to general manager of the nightclub within, it was about 6 months of starting. I guess the owner saw something in me, and then the rest of that experience, of my experience, is like 20 years with that company. It was a dual partnership up until the last 3 or 4 years of working there. And so I got to see all the inner workings of a restaurant and a nightclub, and then the theater side of it as well, and ended up as chief of operations. They referred to it as an officer position, but it wasn't technically on the board of the company. The only reason I am not doing that anymore is because my next spot would have been owner, and he wasn't going to die anytime soon.
All right, so the next question I have for you is, what does leadership mean to you?
Well, it's definitely more than task management. It's what I try to do with my employees and my teams is to get them to buy in to whatever my vision or the mission is, and make them own it. And it's like cooking. If you do one thing wrong, they can turn on you like a cake collapsing in the oven. But I guess leadership to me means being a human, treating them as humans instead of as productivity reports and statistics, and ultimately getting them to feel as though they have some sort of say in the direction of the project or the team or whatever it ends up, whatever they're on.
Awesome. Haven, it looks like you are next.
Okay. So this first question I want to ask you, but I kind of want to add to it a little bit without bombarding you. The question is, do you consider yourself an introvert or extrovert? And my addition to that is, when you started your journey and all this, did it change over time? Like, did you start as an introvert and end up as an extrovert? That sort of thing, if that makes sense.
Exactly. Introvert to the nth degree. But then being forced to be in a restaurant and on the floor and in a nightclub and in the theater, I think I developed acting skills along the way, because I'm still very introverted until I'm comfortable with somebody, and then I become more extroverted.
Okay. So I guess that kind of leads into, does it change if you are a team leader or a team member? So I guess you kind of like adapt.
It's still acting for me, but I've never found it to be difficult to step into a leadership role and act as though I'm an extrovert. And when I say extrovert in a team setting, I mean, hey, how's your family? How was last night? Did you get that thing accomplished that you were trying to get accomplished? You know, I try to talk to them as a human being instead of as, you know, we're here to work and all that, because I've found that over the years that if you talk to people as humans, they produce more for you.
Cool. All right, I'm up. My first question is, what is your biggest challenge as a leader?
Can you clarify that one for me a little bit? Do you mean in general, or on a project, or what are you looking for?
Yeah, I would view it as leading a team, whatever capacity that means. I mean, it could be project, it could just be day to day. What kind of challenges do you face?
The challenges that I came up against were mostly external. There were some instances where maybe team members didn't get along, but those weren't really challenges. It was about taking charge and sitting them down and having them work it out with me acting as a mediator. External challenges were something completely different. You count on, let's say you give yourself 4 weeks to produce a milestone, and you're relying on a construction company on the outside to do something for you. Inevitably, 75-80% of the time, they aren't going to meet the deadline. And the more as a team leader, the longer amount of time I spent as a team leader, the worse it got. So in my last 5 years with the company that I was with previously, it was every day on the phone, emails, hey, you promised this in 14 days. We're on day 13. I haven't heard anything. It's those kinds of challenges that were my biggest challenge. The internal stuff was pretty easy. Like I said, it was just getting people to talk.
So what about dealing with those challenges? I mean, did you find it difficult when it's something that's out of your control to manage that? Or do you have a pretty relaxed feel for it?
I go into things knowing that the work is going to be there, whether it gets done when they wanted it done or not. So it's not great. I am overachieving in everything I do, and I hate going to the boss and saying, we've been delayed on this particular asset. But I think it was mostly just stressful keeping track of all of it. You know, if you email or you've got an email list going, you've got a spreadsheet over here, you've got a project management application going, and just trying to keep everybody up to date on those kinds of delays so that it doesn't cause problems down the road was the most stressful aspect of it.
So what about the flip side of it? What are your biggest strengths as a team member and team leader?
Well, as a leader, I usually have a pretty clear picture of what we're trying to accomplish. I won't even build my team until I know what the end result is and I've got my mind wrapped around it. I worked with a owner that he was very visual based in his thinking, and he spoke very quickly, and there was no time to take notes thoroughly. And so I had to take extra time after a meeting to make sure I understood exactly what he was asking for. So as the team leader, as long as I had my mind, a grasp on the project, I don't know where I was going with that. My strength. That was my strength, was getting my mind wrapped around the project. As a team member, I'm usually just that bubbly, happy, hey, let's dig in and do the job kind of guy. And it just kind of carries everybody with me. So
cool.
Cool. My turn. So my question is about your weaknesses, and you can elaborate on both as a team member and as a leader if you'd like, but just any personal weaknesses that you deal with, or maybe some that you had and have kind of worked on over the years.
Oh, well, as a team leader and a team member, I have this awful thing that when I'm stressed, if I've been operating on continual stress for a period of time, and I'm not sure what that period of time is yet, after 45 years of it, you'd think I'd figure it out, but no. I shut down. And when I shut down, there is no amount of prodding or motivating that's going to get me to complete that project in an efficient amount of time. I'll get it done eventually, but let's say I've been working on it since 8 in the morning. It's now 2 p.m. in the afternoon, and my brain says you're done. I'm done. There's going to be no more work on it. If there's a meeting at 4 o'clock, I won't be useful in the meeting. It's a shutdown. I try to get out of it, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
So that goes as a team member or a team leader. The only other thing I have as a team member is I don't want to just flat out say I hate people, but I hate people that aren't producing. I get it if they don't understand or if they're lost and don't know what to do. I don't have a problem with that. It's when there's no common sense involved that I really get crabby, and I will take on other people's work just to get it done and get them out of my hair. So that's probably it.
Yeah, I think both of those are good to realize that you have. My next question is, how do you build trust for the team? And this is in the leader perspective.
I kind of touched on it. You start out as a human. If people come into a setting and their expectations are that, oh, he's nose to the grindstone, robotic, or he's focused on numbers, then that scares people and it intimidates them. And so I've always tried to be that kind of meeting facilitator or team leader that, call it motherly if you want, or parental. But I'll start out with something funny about myself and, let them realize that even though I hold a different title than them, we're still in the same boat. And ultimately, it's up to us together if we sink or swim. And getting that across really helps. I don't think I have never tried the other way where I come in and I say, shut up, we got to get to work. I don't care about what's going on in your personal life. I've never been that kind of person. I will if someone's a vent, I let them vent. If I see someone angry in a meeting or they're, really fuming, I'll pull them out in front of everybody. I know people hate that, but I've also found that in the long run, it helps build that rapport with the team. And it also establishes a bit of authority for the leader because they know they're not going to get away with it either.
I think I'd like to be part of your team.
We have a blast.
So real quick, you mentioned something about we did an activity, I think it was last week or a week and a half ago, where we went around and told something unique about ourselves, and we all had something really deep, but you just mentioned something that kind of reminded me of that, and that was that you often try to say something funny or tell something funny about yourself. Would you mind sharing something with us?
Thank you for your time. I think I'm going to sign off right now. Something funny about myself?
Or something unique. Just probably unique would work well.
Unique. Well, it's not funny, but I learned over many years that I am a rare hybrid of left brain, right brain. So my left brain sees numbers and understands reporting and productivity and analysis and all those crappy business buzzwords. But then my right brain is all about, oh, I'd like to paint that, or I want to build roller coasters in a video game, or I like to write theater and music. And what I've found throughout the years is a lot of people have told me, you know, you have the ability to do both. You could be an artist that turned a profit because you also have the numbers aspect to it. Gosh, I don't know if I have anything funny about me. I have gotten so cerebral in my old age that I don't even have a sense of humor anymore.
Joey, do you have anything funny about Alan?
Oh boy.
Well, often, no. I can echo his statement about being, I don't want to take this or run with it, but I can attest to him being both left and right brain. He started a theater company in Columbus, Ohio, doing Broadway style shows or off-Broadway musicals, like Annie and
Annie.
Or you all did Annie once, didn't you? It's an example. Okay, so Rocky Horror Picture Show, Evil Dead, stuff like that. But then he and a few friends started a business out on some land, and they started a haunted attraction. So it was a walk-through haunted attraction that was available several months of the year, obviously around fall. But it was comparable to a haunted attraction that you would pay $50 or $60 to in town around Halloween. Special effects, visuals. But the cool thing is he took that creative aspect, and it was highly profitable, and turned it into the funding for the theater troupe, so that they didn't have to worry about finances for the productions. While it was all still very creative, he was able to turn something creative into something very profitable in a unique way that benefited the whole team that he was leading in that regard as well. So that's one of the things that I've always found fascinating about Alan, is that type of mentality. Is I can run to him with any idea, and he's like, well, what about this, this, and this? And then we can turn it into cash flow or something extremely creative. So
cool.
Back to the actual interview, sorry.
But let me add to that. Ask me something simple and I will fall apart. I will not know how to answer. I can't handle anything that's, I guess you would consider pedestrian. Can't handle it. I'll overthink it, guaranteed.
Yeah. All right.
That's funny.
I think I did.
James,
yeah, sorry.
Hey, Alan. So it looks like, I want to start with the military background. You kind of went over creativity, and a lot of things came to mind. We kind of go through ad hoc teams, and composing something quick and building ideas fast and bringing people together. I was thinking about the military and how that probably helped with your abilities to do that. But what would you say the military brought to your life in terms of what would be like the best thing that you derive from the military overall?
That's a good question. So the biggest thing that I brought out of the military with me, and let me back up a step and just say, I think I speak for many Americans when I say that we all tend to get nervous when we're put into situations that are viewed commonly as a big deal. So for example, not being in the military, looking at the military, you get this idea that it's regimented, it's the best of the best, it's experts in every field and those kinds of things. And then you get that same thing for, like, let's say working for Apple or Amazon or Google, you know, any of the tech giants. You even get that way when you're starting with, I'm actually taking a seasonal job with Disney. And I've already got this feeling that, oh, I'm going to be among the best. If any of you watch RuPaul's Drag Race, you see it all the time. The drag queens come on there, they think they're the best, and then when they're pitted up against other talent, they suddenly realize their shortcomings. However, what I found in the military, and since every organization that I've been a part of afterwards, is that the military is really just a bunch of misfits. And we're all doing our best to try and do our jobs. Yeah, there are a lot of mistakes. And yeah, there are a lot of lucky chances that someone didn't get killed while they were working on whatever they were working on. And it's the same thing for any organization that we are not personally biased towards, that we have no history with. So I'm going into this Disney position thinking that I'm going to be surrounded by experts. And I already know that I won't be. We're all misfits. And I think if a lot of people could step back before they emotionally allow themselves to freak out about an opportunity or an organization, I think they would be better off knowing that you're really just joining another band of misfits. And I can't stress that enough. Every group is a bunch of misfits, but they find their common ground and then they're able to be successful with that common ground. I brought that with me out of the military, and it has saved me from getting cold feet in so many situations.
So would you say the most important aspect to team success is that common goal and common vision? Or what would you say is the most?
No. I prefer to have a team full of people that are wanting to challenge the status quo. I need those people that are not risk takers and the people that are risk takers, because you get sparks when you have different personalities in a team. If I were to handpick a team to do a renovation project on a restaurant, I'm going to want people that think alike, because it's a concrete goal. You are trying to get a building renovated by a certain date. If we're talking a creative team, for example, when I'm designing a haunted house, I want as many different types of personalities as I can get, because even though it may lead to some battles and arguments and some nights of sleeplessness, ultimately the best ideas come from the battleground.
So that was kind of my question, just how you encourage creativity. And it sounds like depends on, it's project based, but it's also based on how people would clash to create whatever product you're looking for?
I love to ask what if. I'll go back to the haunted attraction. We wanted to do something different, and so we wrote a story and made the attraction stick to that story the whole way through. And we got to this end, and I remember the meeting very distinctly. We were sitting around a table. I think we had cheese and cookies in front of us or something, and we were all eating on it, and it'd been 3 hours, and we hadn't come up with what we were calling a climax to the haunted attraction. We wanted a big bang up finale. And I was sitting there, and someone said something about if we could make something disappear. And with me, it struck, I was like, wow, it would be really cool if they start surrounded by woods, and then they close their eyes, and all of a sudden they're in an open field. And that led to our climax, which was this ridiculous mechanical thing that raised up and strobe lights blinded them so that all of a sudden they were in the middle of a field. It worked, but it was all through what if. What if we could transport them in a blink of a second or a blink of an eye from here to here, and they would notice it, that kind of thing. So what if? If somebody's mad or they're rolling their eyes about an idea, like, every haunted attraction does that, that's when I'm going to turn to them and say, well, what would you like to see at a haunted attraction? They're not going to be able to answer it, but someone else will, because that other person's looking at it like, well, I've never seen that before. I'd like to see that. Well, how can we make it better so that it makes both of them want to see it?
So, yeah, that was a good one. So the next question is kind of about communication and miscommunication, but I can maybe make this one more interesting. Based on scale, what was sort of your biggest project, and when you're on a team that is self-managed, similar to the one in this class, if you have a team that's going to be self-managed, how do you deal with dualities of opinion and sort of that clash on a scale where everybody is making the decision? Kind of, do you step in and sort of pick a pony, or do you allow them to kind of work it out? What's sort of your process there?
My process is more about letting them work it out, because ultimately, if they're the ones who have to deal with it, then I want them to be, I know you can't please everyone, but I want everyone to be as close to happy about it as they possibly can. That is, if it's a project that has the luxury of that kind of steering. Again, if it's a renovation of a building, no, we don't have time to be a self-managing team. It's going to be this way or the highway. But if I were to put together a team that was picking a season of shows for the theater, I know that there's some time involved in that, and it's also a subjective type project where someone may enjoy this show but they hate this show, or someone may not enjoy the show that other person likes, and so they're going to have to come up with a rating system that works for all of them to select those shows. Then yeah, I don't have a problem with them doing that at all. I think ultimately that's probably the best route to go, because if you put your foot down and say, well, I need a musical about gangs, and I need a musical about an orphan, and I need a musical about a girl gets bumped in the head and has a dream that she's in some fantasy land, then I think you're defeating the purpose of having a team to begin with.
Yeah, that was a good answer. I was thinking along those exact same lines. I think that's the answer that the textbook says as well.
Well, I've read a lot of textbooks.
Oh, I have one. What was your favorite book on leadership?
Oh, if it counts, my very favorite book ever was called Re-Engineering the Corporation. Or wait, was it? No, I'm sorry. It's position. Hold on, it's on my bookshelf. It's positioning.
So that bookshelf used to be a whole room. Just when we moved to Florida, he had to consolidate.
I'm going to rebuild this library, trust me. I think it was Al Ries and Jack Trout wrote it. It was repositioning the corporation or something. I can't remember the exact name, but it came out the same time as the total quality management theory. And their theory was you have to position not only your products and your brand, but you also have to position your customer's mind to be successful. And there was a lot of leadership stuff in there that I took with me.
Yeah, thank you for that. Daniela?
Yeah, so Alan, I know you mentioned that you, depending on the project, you do prefer to keep everyone different just for creativity purposes and things like that. But regardless of the project, are there any attributes that you do prefer to keep consistent?
I was going to say the way we communicate, but I mean like relying on email versus video chat or something like that. But thinking that more clearly through, the communication was adapted to whatever the project was as well. Consistent. Oof. Me? I think I was probably the only consistent in every team, and I'm not even consistent in my best days. So, no, actually, I think consistency is probably a bad word if you're looking for results. By saying I need to meet every Monday at 2 p.m., I think the human mind starts to shut down after so long because I got to go to this meeting at 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
You know, so I think changing it up I think it's more successful than trying to keep things the same. And team members don't get lulled into a sense of, I don't want to say comfort, but for lack of a better word, I'll say that. If team members are too comfortable, they start to get sluggish and they're not as agile or quick to respond to opportunity.
Yeah, and some people don't work well as part of a routine either. So thank you. And then to just kind of change things up a little bit, how does diversity have a role in your team?
Oh, well, it's the same way as personalities. So women are going to look at things differently than men. And you can run down that entire list: gay, straight, black, white, Asian, American, all of it ultimately helps a team produce. In fact, it's a lot. It's a big number as far as productivity. When I have a team that is all white men, we're limited by our experience. So if, we all grew up in a middle-class neighborhood, we all went to college, we all got a good paying job right out of college, then the ideas are going to be similar among all of us.
Right.
But when you change it up, I think I've always gotten better results.
Yeah, I agree.
So if I'm afforded that luxury of picking who goes on my team, I do try to pick from various ethnicities and personalities and
backgrounds. Yeah. Thank you.
Cool. All right, Alan, my next two questions you kind of already covered with, do people ever try to impede on people's roles in the group? How do you avoid this? Could you improve negative outcomes in terms of projects? So I want to kind of focus on instead, how do you view your career growth and what's your motivation behind how you're moving from one project to the next?
All right, I thought I understood you until you said from one project to the next.
Well, your career growth, you're from wherever you are to where you want to be,
Okay.
and how you go about getting there, and how do you motivate yourself, and what is your motivation?
So for me, age has a lot to do with my ambition nowadays. And I'm not using it as a crutch, but let me explain what I mean by that. When I was 19, I was going to take over the world. And I'm
pretty sure we all were.
I was ambitious. I was cocky. But I was smart, and I knew I was the golden boy. Wherever I went, I knew I was going to be the golden boy. And it paid off. I promoted really quickly. I was part-time for 6 months, full-time general manager, held that position for 3 years, moved into an office setting, did that for 3 or 4 years, moved into a higher general manager / district manager position, and within 2 years I was regional, and then I was chief of operations. The same time all that was going on, I had theater companies that I had founded. At one time I had 4 theater companies going in the city. And I was making appearances at every rehearsal, and I was making appearances at every performance, and I was doing all the marketing, I was doing all the sales. I was taking over Columbus, Ohio, at least. And then I got stuck. I couldn't go any further in the company that I was with. Like I said, the next step for me would have been owner. Now, I fortunately worked with an owner that also turned out to be a friend. And so after every few years, he would give me a higher title so that my resume would always show that progression. But ultimately, the job, after I got into the office as a regional district manager, whatever you wanted to call it, the job didn't really change. I just took on more responsibility. So I got stuck, and I started to rely on that as a given. And then I realized, oh my gosh, I can't leave this job because I can't go anywhere else and start over. But fate has a way of getting us unstuck when we've been stuck too long. And so I was put into a new situation that showed me it was time to move on. And what I learned from the entire process, the entire process for me took, so I had a fast food job in high school, joined the military right out of high school, then fell into the restaurant industry. And I was in the restaurant industry until November of last year. Each spot, this is a long drawn out.
That's fine.
Each spot, I learned something new about the world and myself. And the big things that I carry with me now are, it's very hard to move a mountain. There are all kinds of inspirational quotes that you can be the change. Yes, you can, but not everybody else follows very quickly. It takes years and years and years of planting a seed and prodding and pushing. And human beings are so reluctant to change that I found myself becoming not just frustrated, but disappointed in how the world works. So I changed my plan of attack, and instead of aiming for a more corporate or big company style career, I have gone the other direction, and now I'm working more towards solitary careers that I have complete control over. So example would be writing, or even teaching, because you have some say in how your day goes and what your curriculum is and things like that. I'm sick of being told how to do my job. And I don't want to put negativity out there for any of you and say that a lot of people in authority positions are like this, but all my experience has been that people of a certain age are set in their ways. They think they know what's right and what works. And when you come in with new ideas and can prove to them that those new ideas are satisfactory, that they work, or they are better, they can't handle it. And I just decided, I'm 45, I just decided that I'm done trying to get people to change and accept new ideas, because at a certain point, they're not going to change. And a lot of bosses are that way. A lot of corporate bosses are that way. People that I worked alongside of that were managers of other divisions were that way. And they were half my age. So it's not an age thing for everybody, but for me, I think what I started to see was there's a lot more of these, to be frank, bullheaded, think they know the way of the world kind of bosses that aren't willing to bend for new ideas and younger minds, that ultimately I think is going to set us up for a future that isn't going to be as successful as it could be.
Cool.
I don't want to throw people under the bus, but I think that's the best way to describe that. So
I know what you're trying to say.
To summarize, I've decided to take a career path that I kind of set my destination and can reach it. I've already done the corporate thing. I tried it. I got as high as I could get, but I don't want to do that again. I'm going to stick towards things that I have a little more control over.
Cool. I like that.
That's really cool. So as a leader, how do you resolve personality conflicts within your group? How do you handle things like that?
Give me an example of what you would consider a personality conflict.
Let's say you have someone who's kind of like a control freak, but they're not in a leadership position, so they can't really be a control freak. How would you kind of juggle that?
Step by step, the first thing I would do is I would sit them down and explain to them that I appreciate their interest in wanting to accomplish something. I would give them a little bit of time to talk, because sometimes just listening solves the problem. Actually, more times than not, listening and allowing someone to vent solves the problem. It solves itself. I'm not the type of leader that's gonna turn right to a reprimand procedure. But if it is negatively affecting the team, I'll probably reassign them before it gets to a reprimand thing. Just as an example, I am very observant of people's strengths and their weaknesses. And if I notice that a weakness has invaded the team via one of my members, I will try to find them something that they're better at. If it's on the team, great. If it's not, then I'll reassign them. I guess I take it's actively passive. How about that? I am aware of the situation, but a lot of times it's someone had a bad day, is having a bad week. Someone doesn't want to be on the team at all, and you'll find that out by listening to them when they talk. But you can't change somebody's personality, and there's only so much you can do by threatening. And so I've found that it's easier to take a softer approach.
Cool. I guess the second question kind of relates. How do you hold your team accountable for their problems? Does peer pressure work in this instance? That sort of thing. You kind of answered it a little bit, but I didn't know if you had anything else to add to that.
I can't say that I have ever been on a team or a project where a personality conflict slowed down the process. It can generally be handled just by saying, hey, guys, keep it out of the meeting. And generally people will respond to that. If they haven't responded, hey, tell me what's going on here. Every team, every project, they've been, because of the buy-in, they are looking forward to the results of getting it done. So if it means a bonus for everybody, if it means extra time off, or it's kudos or merit badges or whatever, that always seems to be, and then that's an interesting observation that I've noticed over my career, is that it can be the smallest little thing, but if it acknowledges that they put in an effort, they'll work hard for it. Like the carrot, hanging in front of the horse. If that carrot is really just a carrot, a lot of people will perform for that. You don't need multi-$100,000 campaigns to incentivize a team to get something done. We're all here to work. We're all here to do good. And I think if you play to those aspects, you won't have problems on your teams. And like I said, I can't think of one example where I had to really intervene to solve something. Okay, one example that comes to mind. It was late at night. The nightclub had closed. We, as a team, were responsible for putting the nightclub back in order for the next shift. It had been a long day. They had all been working. It was an event. So they had all started at like 10 in the morning, and it was now 4 a.m. On top of that, the electric had gone out at about 2 a.m. The bar closes at 2:15, so we got everybody out at 2. And so for about an hour or two, we had been cleaning and resetting without power. And a couple of my bartenders, there was a second floor bar and there was a first floor bar, and they were kind of bickering back and forth about having to do something here and having to do something there. Well, it turned into a really loud argument, and I thought it was going to get physical, and I stepped out of the office. I was counting money. I stepped out of the office and I stood there for a second, and clearly it was because they were overworked. There had been no power, so they couldn't do their jobs effectively, and it had all just come to a head. And all it took to solve the problem was to, for a second, scream louder than them and say, I have had it. We want out of here. And the only way we're going to get out of here is if we get the work done. And that's all I had to say. And it solved the issue. They went back to work, and the two guys were friendly to each other for the rest of the shift, and we got out of there. I guess the point of that is that you don't have to be a jerk about it, but if you show that you're in charge and you've taken control of it, most people will back off if they're normal. I've never had to deal with somebody that was so crazy. Like, the people that are crazy don't get assigned to jobs. And in fact, they can't even hold their jobs. So I don't know where I'm going with that. My experience has been, it's very simple to solve those problems.
Thank you.
Cool.
James?
So there's these two different viewpoints. One's becoming a little more popular today, and that's equality of outcome, and the sort of capitalistic idea of opportunity, equality of opportunity. What do you think builds a stronger team? Sort of equality of opportunity or equality of outcomes?
Can you define quality of outcomes for me?
Equality of outcomes is, shoot, I could pull up a good picture. Equality of opportunity allows everyone equal opportunity.
Correct.
But the idea of equality of outcomes is that everyone starts on a different footing, everyone comes from a different place. So we give the people that aren't up to the same level as everyone more opportunity. So some people, in two different views, some people believe that it's more equal to give people extra things to reach this level, elevated level, who aren't there. And some people believe that everyone has the opportunity. So that is true freedom.
I knew.
Let me pull up a picture. Super.
I get it. I wanted to make sure that I understood it the way you had intended.
And this is in terms of building a team.
Yes.
Here's a good one.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other one I was thinking of was there's a group of animals in front of a desk, and a human looks at the animals and says, okay, you're going to be graded on how well you climb that tree. And there's an elephant standing there. There's, a leopard, I think, and there's a rabbit and a squirrel. And it's the same, to me, it's the same thing. So in teams, okay. My experience in my career has been that opportunity is open to everyone, no matter what. But I come from a white male background. And in the early years of my career, there existed a good old boys network. If you were like them, they were the mentor. They were the hand on your shoulder. They were the ones steering you in the direction you wanted to go.
Hey, Joey, I think you're echoing.
I am?
I shut the door, so I can mute it, though.
Oh, somebody's echoing.
How's that?
Oh, that's good.
Is that good? Okay. So I saw, so this good old boys network, I saw it, I knew it existed, but I always wanted to make it on my way or on my terms. And so I didn't quite join the good old boy network. And then from there, I was able to move forward in my career. Now, I cannot say positively 100% that it wasn't because of what I look like. And so therefore, someone in my same shoes that does not look like me may not have had the same path that I had just because of the way I look. Bear with me, I'm trying to work through this. Here's an example. I had a general manager that was female. She was clever. She was sharp. She knew her job. She was the best of the best. The minute a manager position opened up, she was promoted to that position. The two of us traveled parallel lines. I feel like I'm echoing now. We followed parallel lines for several years. And then out of the blue, the owner developed developed some sort of idea about her that she wasn't in it for him. She was in it for herself. And from that point forward, no matter how hard she worked, no matter how good her results, he still did not believe that she was going to cut it. And she ended up leaving. because she didn't feel like she mattered anymore. I think what I'm trying to say with that is she had the exact same opportunities as I until the owner got a different picture of her in his mind. And so, because of that flaw in the human mind, because I know a lot of people that have been guilty of it, I may have even been guilty of it in my years, I would say equality of outcomes I think it needs its day in court. I'm not quite sure how to finish that response.
Yeah, I think it's tough. It's definitely a duality, and I think in some cases it works great. In other cases, it doesn't work great. Depends on the position, depends on the job, depends on the circumstance. But I think overall, it limits freedom when equality means giving someone more or less than another person, judging them based on something other than their ethic of their work. I think that's an unfair thing. But I also think that there are limiting factors as well. Diversity's, been a factor in the past, and is slowly we're working our way towards a greater position on that. But yeah, I think equality of outcome in a lot of cases has worked its way into our political system, and I think in a lot of working situations where it's unfair, and it doesn't judge based on someone's ethic of their work and rather their ethnicity or something else, or a quota that a tech company per se has to meet. And rather than seeking results, they say, hey, we have too many of this group of people or that group of people, and they make an unfair decision based on that. But that's not always the case.
No, it's not.
That's just
Sorry to interrupt. I will say that on my project teams, we were all equal. Nobody had an unfair advantage over anybody else because I treated my teams as we're all in the same boat. So that means we all have the same life vests. We have the same supplies. So I never really encountered that issue in a team. Where I encountered it was in the day-to-day grind, the promotions, the people overlooked for promotions, the people that, and this, I've seen this a lot, is someone made a mistake 2 years ago, and the people in charge are still holding that mistake against them, even though they've said, we're going to look past the mistake, but they don't. I think the key to this entire situation is being conscious of your decisions. Why are you choosing this person to be on the team? Why is this person, those kinds of questions. You have to be conscious. And I don't think we have enough conscious managers out there. And it's not to the fault of their own. It's because the amount of business that we do, and in my opinion, a lot of it is unnecessary, but the day-to-day tasks, the duplicating of our work, the emails, the text messages, the phone calls, all that stuff that overwhelms the human mind, but does not overwhelm a computer, causes us to, I think, operate in a continual panic mode. And we don't have time to thoughtfully make decisions. We are just get it done. And who's the person that I can go to that I know can get it done? Oh, not him. He cost us $14,000 last month for this problem. I think if we were to stop and say, but he understood the mistake he made and he's already shown progress in not making that mistake again, well, maybe he is the right person for the job. And that's what's missing. We don't take the time anymore to sit down and think things through. And that's where that equality of outcomes, I think, maybe that's why that's come about, because we're not thinking.
Okay. I guess I'll lead that to another quick question. How do you reward your team members, and how do you incentivize your team members? You mentioned kind of the carrot idea, but I guess what would be a way that you could do that if you don't have monetary resources to fulfill those sort of obligations?
Like I said, small things go a long way. So having lunch catered during a meeting, or bring in dessert, or some of the other things we used to do is, instead of having the meeting in a conference room, we'd go to a restaurant and take over a restaurant section for, an hour. At various stages, or let's say milestones of the project, do recognition days where you're recognizing that somebody produced a great result or had a great idea. These things don't cost anything, but again, I think it goes back to time. We are so caught up in day-to-day stuff that we're not thinking about those little things that make it's not even like, you can't even put a dollar amount to it. When I was 19 to 25, it was about the money. But after I, started to grow up a little bit, it was more about being appreciated for the effort that I'm putting in. I've said it a couple times tonight. I'm not a robot. I come in, I have issues that are bothering me from the night before, or I've got things in my personal life that are affecting me. No matter how hard we try to leave those things at home, sometimes they carry through. And then to have a boss that's just expecting computer productivity is not going to make me feel like I'm worthy or that I'm a strong employee. And so those little things of, even just for me, our office, we had been in this cramped 4-bedroom apartment as our office for several years. And we moved they bought a commercial building, they renovated it, they put in all new floors, and we had brand new desks and all this stuff. And I moved in and I was in love. I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. All of the people in the office with me, however, except the owners, were moaning and complaining about, why is the copier in the other room? And my desk is too small, or I don't like the angle of it. And they're just going on and on and on. And I know those sound like little complaints, but for some reason it snowballed out of control and nobody was happy except me. And all it took for me to continue on that path and not fall into the negativity of my coworkers. My boss came out one day and he was looking around and he goes, Alan, you're very good at adapting. I like to call you old school, new guard. And you stepped into this challenge and owned it, and you didn't complain, and you just kind of ran with it. And I appreciate that. And let me tell you, those words right there were enough to keep me going for another year. If there wasn't a raise coming, I was appreciated. I was acknowledged. I was noticed. And I think it comes down to that. Any kind of incentive that acknowledges someone's effort, that doesn't shoo it under the rug or sweep it under the rug, or just, now I'm notorious when someone gives me a compliment, I'll say, oh, thanks, and I'll change the subject, but it still means a lot to me. And I think a lot of people are like that. So little things like that. Typing up a memo that says, I want to thank publicly, blah, 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 blah. You laugh and you giggle at it because it's a textbook example of acknowledging somebody, but it works. It wouldn't be in the textbook if it didn't.
Thanks, Alan. I think I can use this at work tomorrow, because that's my downfall. I don't appreciate people enough, and I get too stressed out from the work, and it trickles down. And I feel it, and guys get angry. They quit respecting me. They quit listening to me, and I can see the snowball effect. And then at the end of the day, everybody's pissed off, and I'm like, what did I do? I was just trying to finish the job. And I feel like it's a lot of times pressure from above that you don't have the time, and when you're in a lower position. But as you kind of work your way up, I'm sure you can definitely address that stuff a lot more. But I agree. There's a lot I can do. And I think the little stuff Very cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Old school, new guard. Joey?
You're on mute.
Joey, you're muted.
Sorry, I didn't want to echo. So,
I turned my volume down, so you should be good.
all right. Well, thank you for your time. Is there anything that you want to kind of add to this, or maybe something that we didn't talk about, or something that you see as a problem, or as just anything? Do you have any point of view that you want to express that you didn't get an opportunity to by question?
No, I think I got everything out. A lot of times, the academic world does not match the real world, and I've discovered that a lot in all of the places I've worked. But the one thing that is the same everywhere you go is that people are human and they make mistakes, and we've gotten, in general, I feel like we've gotten to where we expect computer-like results from people. And even with a computer, we still make mistakes. And as future leaders, I would hope that you keep that in mind, and that when you treat people as human beings, they're going to rally for you, they're going to be loyal to you, and they're going to have your back. And that's something that's lacking with this generation that is currently not retiring. the ones that should be retiring and aren't. They think since they created it, that they think they know what's best. And if we want to see a bright future, I think we have to rely on new thoughts and new ideas. And in order to do that, we can't destroy them before they get a chance to be the leaders. That's it.
Does anyone else have any questions that they thought of throughout, or that they might have missed if they strayed or anything?
I think this was great. I really appreciate the time, Alan. I mean,
Yeah.
really good. You gave us an hour. That's a lot, but it's good insight. I think you know what you're talking about, and you've been through a lot, so it's good to hear. It's always good to hear perspective.
Glad I could help.
So what we'll do is, after we kick you out, is take a few minutes to kind of discuss everything and gather our thoughts. It might be beneficial to take a little bit of time as a team, in my opinion, and often as soon as we turn off the record button, something comes to mind. So if you're willing, if something comes to mind for someone, would you be willing to answer via email or
Oh, sure.
pop in at a later date?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
Bye.
All right.
Cool, man.
All right. So do you got the agenda, or?
Yes, let's move on to the agenda. How did this meeting go? James, let's start with you.
All right, let's. I'm gonna try not to say good. I think it was awesome. I could have learned. I think I learned a lot, and I keep kind of getting the recurring answer of people are human. You need to be more empathetic. You need to listen to people more. You need to have and take the time to treat people as if they're not just numbers. But you know, being in a position of leadership at a company that's sort of like struggling, I think it's real difficult to be able to take the time to do that. But I think it's the little stuff. I think the most important thing I learned was just taking the time, you know, to appreciate people and reward people, and maybe bring donuts on a Friday, or just a little incentives that keep people going. So I thought it went great. Yeah, he had a lot of insight, and it's awesome to see somebody be able to excel in so many different areas. And it's neat to kind of understand how they got there. I think the military probably had a lot to do with it in terms of like the early years of discipline, and taking a piece of clay and making it into someone that's really well-rounded. But yeah, I thought it was cool. I wish I was in the military.
I was surprised by his military answer. I was expecting more. It was regimented and it was structure, but to hear his response that they're all misfits just trying to do the best they can like the rest of us, it's encouraging. I thought he was super confident and really motivated, and there's not everybody is like that. I've encountered a lot of people in the workforce that are not that driven and are not as successful, and you can tell why. So good job, Joey.
Yeah.
I can echo that. I think the meeting went really well. I was struggling for a minute because I felt like we were straying, but it actually opened the doors to more conversation. So I'm glad that it happened. But in regard to the military comment, I think a lot of it had to do with his parents. He tells the story of, he's been doing theater since he was like 7 in his basement. He produced a full production of Cats, the musical, in his basement with little to no props. And he actually convinced neighbors in his rural farm town to come to his house and watch it. So his parents came home from work one day and there were people in the basement watching a production of Cats from a young child. So, I think some of it is instilled, and then I think some of it is just cool parents, not necessarily cool parents, but parents that encourage that creativity, or, whatever you want to do. Obviously within reason, but there's nothing harmful in producing a musical in your basement as a child, or if you want to, build something, provide every outlet possible, and that obviously encourages that creativity or that drive to chase your dreams. And encourage that in others. I mentioned it earlier. If I tell him I have an idea, I tell him what it is, he gives me my feedback, and then we go do it. So it's afforded me a lot of opportunity myself, just having someone with his background and level of expertise and just sincere encouragement
Cool.
to achieve a lot of cool things. So yeah, I think the meeting was great. Thank you for keeping it within the hour for him.
Yeah. Daniela, any other insights?
Yeah. I meant what I said about me wanting to be part of his team. I think that's exactly the kind of leader I would like to work under, especially when I'm not feeling as confident as I should. I feel like that's the kind of person that would bring somebody out of the box and kind of push them and motivate them. But as far as the meeting goes, I think it went really well. I think it flowed. I liked everyone's improv questions, and because I know he would dip into other questions, and I was like, oh no, but I think we all made it work. So I liked the interview.
And Haven.
I learned a lot from him. I think we can all take into account his leadership and kind of his style and what he does. And I don't know, it was really interesting, and I was really glad that he went into detail about some of the things, because I struggle with a lot that he does really good at. So that was kind of nice to see his point of view and how he handled it. So that way maybe I can try that someday.
Cool. Yeah, Joey, thanks for recommending him. That was a good call.
Yep.
All right. Any changes for the next meeting?
So the next meeting is what, 6.1? Yeah. And that's over 6.4 notes. right?
Okay. Yep. 6.1 content discussion.
What are the 6 point? So there's 2 sets of notes again, like normal, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and let's open up the agenda. And we've got overview, chapter 4, textbook conclusion. There's a website article. There's 2 videos. Basic fare of content. Do we want to go back to Monday, Thursday for next week? Oh, crap.
That works for me, but I'm open.
Hold on 1 second. Let me just check with Sam. Hey, Sam?
Our next 2 assignments are worth 125 and 100 points.
Yeah, I think I don't know why, but they're going up.
So for the meeting possibly on Monday, is it just the 6.4 that we have to have done?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever goes with that. Did we want to cover the extra credit that night? Because it looks like we have a written assignment the next meeting, right? Or is that, no, it's individual, I'm sorry.
Oh, it is?
The written assignment under 6.2 is individual.
Oh, okay.
But I think it's just our assessments of each other and ourselves.
Sorry, right on cue, my computer died. Monday is good.
Okay. So obviously, if anything comes up, just let us know. Who wants to do what?
I can facilitate.
Okay.
Yeah, I can host.
Okay.
I can submit.
I'll bring a joke.
And I'll challenge. Okay.
That
So
was easy.
same time, I'm
So
assuming.
Monday and Thursday at 6?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we want to do extra credit Monday or do we want to save it for Thursday?
Let's save it. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to do before then.
Right.
For Monday.
And it's the weekend.
Yeah, it's the weekend.
Okay. I mean, we can always push it to the last week if we need to.
I mean, let's get it done before we do it. I mean, before the end, but
yeah.
All right. That's review any instructions for the next meeting. Set up the roles. We did that.
Yep.
We don't have to submit anything except Joey, you're submitting this YouTube link.
Yep. That took a long time to upload. I was surprised.
Yeah, I think it almost does it it's almost real time.
Yeah.
I have to reach out to Dr. Chanley because I sent her the link to the first half of that meeting from last week, but when I try to submit it on Canvas, it says resubmit assignment. So I'm guessing the second half of the meeting was already submitted. So I don't want to resubmit it. So I was hoping the link would work, but I'll see what she says.
What was the number on that? Because I got a grade today. Was it the team interview plan assignment discussion 4.2?
Let me pull it up. My computer is rebooting.
Yeah.
Wait, you said 4.2?
Yeah, it was 4.2, right?
I think so.
Yeah, because I have.
Yeah, we got
some
critical feedback. Very low energy. But I still see a decent score. So I think she's content with what we submitted. It says part 1 and part 2.
interview plan assessment discussion. Yeah, that's 4.2. 50 out of 50. All right. All right. Well, if there's no other items to discuss, see you guys on Monday.
All right. Have a great weekend.
Good meeting,
Bye,
guys. Have fun. Work at my company, Daniela. I know you want to.
Uh,